thank you, Professor Orphanides, for joining us today. How are you finding Europe at the moment?
It's a nice place, my first time here, but I'm very happy that I was invited to participate in this event with you.
Are you enjoying the summit so far?
Yes.
Fantastic. So thank you for your engaging speech. It was titled "The Politics of the Euro Area Crisis." What was the key message you would like us to take away from that speech?
The basic message is that we need to incorporate into our thinking the political dimension of the European Union construction, and in particular the way the euro area is taking decisions to understand why this crisis has been mishandled so badly over the past 5 years. We see a lot of decisions that are being made that don't make sense from an economic perspective and seem to increase the overall costs of handling the crisis. And really, I believe the explanation for this is the political angle.
Thank you. So recently in the news, the European Central Bank has announced its plan for quantitative easing. Now,
finally.
Yes. Well, we'd like you to comment on how you think the implications of this on the euro area, and also due to its timing, do you think it will be effective?
First, let me say that I believe the European Central Bank is perhaps the only institution that works about as well as it could work in Europe. It's, I think, the only truly European institution we have. They are not perfect. Mistakes are being made, but it's important to at least have the ECB serve as an anchor to the system in this sense. The problem the ECB has been facing in the last several years from a macroeconomic perspective is very similar to the one faced by other major central banks like the Bank of England or the Federal Reserve. Interest rates are effectively zero, so the central banks could not add additional monetary policy accommodation by cutting interest rates. What they had to do instead is adopt balance sheet policies. This means expanding the balance sheet of the central bank. This means purchasing assets, usually government bonds. The difficulty the ECB has had is that it has been unwilling to purchase government bonds for monetary policy purposes, and this has led, unfortunately, to a policy mistake. The ECB did not ease monetary policy as much as it should have. This is why we have inflation drifting lower and lower, and right now we have deflation in Europe in headline indices, very low inflation in core HICP indices. So that's an introduction to tell you that it was a very important decision to make for the ECB. It was incredibly important to start quantitative easing. Yes, it's late, but the more important thing is that they've started it. There is also a very positive element in the program they have announced, in that it's open-ended. What they've said is they will be purchasing government bonds until September of next year, and then they might continue to purchase government bonds if inflation does not return to what would be in line with their mandate. So I think that they will be purchasing government bonds for a very long time. Very good decision in this regard. One negative aspect is that unfortunately the technical details of how they are purchasing the government bonds are not ideal. Instead of purchasing the government bonds on the common portfolio, reflecting the fact that this is a single monetary policy for the euro area as a whole, they have decided to segment it, and this is not a good sign.
So, why have they done that? What is this signaling? Why are they actually segmenting this responsibility?
Well, this is one of the unfortunate elements about some of the decisions we see. even though the ECB is an independent central bank, it does not exist in a vacuum. It's part of the European framework and part of the euro area, where unfortunately we continue to have existential risks facing the system. There was incredible political opposition to purchases of government bonds in some governments, and there was even greater opposition to start purchasing government bonds the way they should have done it. So the explanation I could see for why they did not adopt the best possible policy for the euro area is in order to try to reduce the political tensions that would have been created if they pursued the best policy for the euro area. I want to stress here, the ECB is in an impossible position. The euro area crisis is a political crisis. The ECB is called time and again as a fire brigade to solve it, but they cannot solve it. The only thing they can do is take these imperfect decisions that buy some more time for the governments to fix the problem.
Thank you. You have mentioned the political tensions that are currently very, very strong in Europe. In Greece, we've seen just a few days ago a lot of popular backing for the left government of Mr. Tsipras, who did come into power. What does that reflect? Does that reflect that the situation, the way that the situation was handled in Greece was incorrect in terms of at least social stability?
It most certainly reflects that. So it's Greece has been a disaster. The program that was implemented by the Troika in 2010 did not serve the interest of Greece, did not serve the interests of Europe. GDP has fallen by 1/4 in Greece as a result of these policies. Part of the blame must go with Greek governments that made many mistakes in the past, but really the destruction we've seen in Greece in the last few years is in large part due to the inappropriateness of the austerity and reforms that were imposed in Greece that drove it to the ground. And unfortunately, when you kill an economy, as has occurred in Greece, you are generating public discontent. You are pushing the electorate to the extremes, and you will see more and more, I believe, radical governments being elected in Europe as long as this continues. The public is very frustrated, and they want to try a new approach. This is the result we see.
And actually, more on that, Tsipras' government is now engaging in bargaining for better bailout terms. Do you think that this is reasonable demands, and also do you think they're achievable?
Well, I think whether they're reasonable or not depends a lot on the perspective you have for the crisis. So if you take the perspective, and this is the narrative that unfortunately is being presented in some of the so-called northern countries. I talked to German economists I know from time to time. The narrative in Germany is scary. The narrative is that the problems in Greece are all the outcome of decisions that the Greeks themselves have taken before, and now the Greeks have to pay for it. What is not being told to the German public or elsewhere is the fact that it was actually the German government who pushed for many of the disastrous decisions that were implemented in Greece. So there is a collective responsibility. Yes, Greek governments and the Greek people made mistakes, but we have a deterioration that has been caused in large part because of the wishes of the German government over the past 5 years. If this is explained to the people, and it is explained to the people that one of the reasons why Greece has suffered so much right now is actually a collective responsibility. I think the European way would demand that the load on Greece is lighter. So if I look at it like that, I think that the fact that the new government in Greece is asking for improvement in the terms of the loans that they have been getting is entirely reasonable. I think the unreasonable position is the position I hear from some other circles that refuse to acknowledge the responsibility the German and other governments have for the carnage we've seen in Europe.
So, leading on from that, why is this not headline news? Why, in Greece and other countries, why do we not see this in the news every day? That the fact that the issues that have taken place in Greece were not caused entirely and solely because of the situation in Greece, but because of the stance that other countries took when it came to the bailout conditions.
Well, there is one line that describes situations like this. Creditors rule. Creditors determine the rules, and in this case, if you're talking about Germany versus Greece, you're talking about a very, very large creditor country. They can control the narrative in the official descriptions, and they can keep doing that for a very long time. So I think that we need to put things in perspective again. If Greece were not in the euro area, if Greece were part of the European Union but not in the euro area, Germany would not have had the leverage and the power to impose such destructive policies on Greece. The situation would have been much better in Greece and it would have been acknowledged abroad. But we do have these flaws in the construction of the euro. The European Union Treaty does not explain how you solve a crisis in Europe. What we have seen in the last 5 years is that as a result, first of the Greek crisis, and then we have Ireland and Portugal and so forth, we have the creation of new treaties that unfortunately are not constructed in the best possible way. Right now, assistance programs in the European Union, in the euro area, are governed by the ESM treaty. If you look at that treaty, it maintains the veto power that the German government has on every single detail of a program that is going on. But since creditors rule, you will continue to hear this narrative.
Thank you very much for joining us, Professor.